John, have I told you I'm addicted to Carwell's auctions?
You might have mentioned it, yeah.
Well, they're online 6 days a week. They're getting 20,000 fresh vehicles in every month. It's actually one of my best sources of quality stock. Listings have got plenty of photos, service history, and background checks for peace of mind. And you can pay sellers in a click with Carwell Wallet. They even transport your car with built-in protection of up to £25,000.
Well, that's more than you will ever need.
Exactly, John. So dealers, if you're not on CarWow, you really should get in on the auction. See what I've done, John?
Oh, God.
Anyway, to find out more, sign up for free at carwow.co.uk/partners/auctions.
Welcome back to the Car Dealer Podcast, where we pick our favourite stories of the week and ask an industry guest to choose which were the best. I'm John Ray, and joining me, as usual, because I can't get rid of him, it's James Baggett. James!
You know what, John, one day I'm not going to turn up and you'll be here on your own because of this online bullying that I'm subjected to every week.
Or will you just, get the first 15 minutes out of the way and then have to go on a lifeboat on the way?
That was a genuine call out. I actually had to do something.
What was actually the emergency? Because you didn't actually reveal that.
What was the actual emergency? It was an EPIRB, John, which is like when a beacon goes off in the harbour. So they sent 2 lifeboats and a helicopter to it. So it was, I actually was there. But it was a man on the boat who had set it off accidentally. We didn't realise. He had a helicopter just hovering above his head for about half an hour. You think, what's that up there? Oh, that might be something to do with me. And it was. So, yeah, that was what that was. Sorry I left the other week. But anyway, how are you doing? Nice to see you.
Yes, I'm fine. I've been vanning about this week in my van.
Yeah, how are the Aces?
They're thriving, actually, in Kent. Now, I moved some plants around this week. It's all go in my life, really. Gave you a wheelbarrow.
You did, thanks.
I'm actually telling you about this for the first time because I left it in your front garden and then drove away.
I found it yesterday, thanks.
Enjoy. But do you know what? It's been strange because it's one of those weeks where I suddenly get in a car that's powered by, or a van that's powered by something other than electricity, and then suddenly I go, "Oh my God! It says I can do 400 miles. What is this?" And then,
what new world is this?
Oh, and then you put in explosive liquid for £20, and then it goes like 180 miles. It's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah,
some would call it the future.
Well, yeah, not sure I go that far. But yes, that's been my week. It's been all go, James. What about you?
Well, good news. I sold 2 of the Jimneys now that I imported from Japan. Sold the grey one this week.
Yes, so I wanted to talk to you about this because I feel like last week's podcast was a bit of a hit session on all the imported cars.
Yeah,
and like you were sort of very excited about them in Japan. When they're on the way, then they arrive. That was kind of exciting-ish, sort of, and slightly annoying when, they turned up without warning. But then I think you've lost the wind out of your sails a little bit, I feel.
Wow. I mean, it's just... I got sent a picture last night of the white one by a mechanic who was at the dealership at 9:30 last night, and he had basically emptied the entire car of everything, seats, all of the interior, because, John, he has to wire a fog light, which is actually a lot more complicated than it sounds. In Japan, it's like, oh, yeah, just wire a fog light. Sounds quite simple, but actually in reality, not quite so simple.
I mean, James, you're talking to someone that wired a fog light in on their late 90s, early 2000s Japanese import as well, and I didn't have to empty out the interior of my car to do it.
No, but
I'm probably throwing that out there.
You probably didn't do it properly, John.
Well,
I mean, look at this. I mean, this is not very good. This is not very good for audio, but look at the back of that Jimny.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's not like emptying out an S-Class, is it?
No, there's quite a lot of bits. But anyway, I sold one I sold the white one last Friday after the podcast, and I sold the grey one this week. And I just have to tell you about the buyer, because if ever there was the perfect buyer for a Japanese import Jimny, it was this lady. She turned up. First conversation was, "Oh, I watched your video. I love Japan. I was in Japan 2 weeks after you were there. Isn't Tokyo amazing?" Etc. etc. So we were talking about how amazing Japan was. She said, "Oh yeah, I'm a retired doctor. I've just bought myself a wood, and I need."
Sorry.
Not a piece of wood, not a piece of wood, an actual wood. And she said, in the winter it gets a little bit muddy there, and I'm a little bit worried about getting there. I don't want a big off-roader. I want an off-roader, and I found the Jimny, and it looks perfect for me. So it's either the green one or the grey one. It wasn't a case of not buying one. It was just which one she wanted.
Wow.
But the most awkward thing about the test drive was the fact that the indicators are on the wrong side, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I said, don't worry, you will get used to it. But she did put the windscreen wipers on every single time.
Yeah.
For the entire test drive. I said, don't worry, it will only take you a day to get used to it. But yes, she loved it, John, paid the deposit. And now we need to get the IVA test booked. We rang the DVLA and Joe said he spoke to what he can only assume is the man who has the paperwork we've sent on his desk. But he said, oh, yeah, we're not sure when we're going to get around to it. What he really meant is, I don't know when I'm going to open that envelope on my desk to book your IVA test. This is the problem. I mean, it is. These are the little frustrations. It's you're dealing with government bureaucracy that just takes forever.
Just two things though. One, how much money have you made on them?
I don't know. Actually, is my honest answer, because we're still clocking up costs.
Right. But it's a better return on investment.
Oh, definitely. It will definitely be a better return on the Kia Picanto I sold last week.
Lovely. Second question, when are you going to buy some more then?
Well, Joe did ring me on Wednesday after we'd sold the Jimny and said, shall we buy some more? And I said, let's leave it a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Also, just before we move on to our guest, I've got a bone to pick with you because, John, you turned up at the dealership the other week and you've been talking about on the podcast about how much you loved your amazing trip to Montana and how beautiful Middle America is, and that it was a fantastic thing. Luke, our employee, came to me on Friday and said, can I have some holiday, please? And I said, yeah, you can have some holiday. Where are you thinking about going? Oh, I've just booked a trip to Montana.
No way.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
He said, I was so taken by what John said, I thought I had to go myself. So he's going on his own. He's leaving his missus at home, and he's going to go and drive around Montana. And that's all thanks to you. So does that mean you're going to come down and clean the cars on his behalf?
So joining us this week is Tim Smith, Chief Strategy Officer at Keyloop. Tim, lovely to see you.
Hello, gentlemen. How the devil are you?
Nice to see
you.
you.
A wonderful day, sunny, shiny. I've got the old short sleeve on.
Yeah.
I must admit, I have been tracking with great interest your Yakuza cars.
Junior Yakuza, I think you would call those.
I think you've said it. You said it very, very well. It's all about the admin, isn't it? And that importation and the bureaucracy. We do tend to get in the way of trade in this country, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, on a positive note, I'm looking forward to spending some time with you guys today.
Well, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. It's been a little while. So give us an update on all things with you. What have you been up to and what's been going on?
Well, I mean, it has. I think we always start, it's been a busy time, hasn't it? We've been doing a huge amount of work at Keyloop. We've just come off the back of our Fusion live event in London, which really was a very important event for us to help position our organisation as an automotive retail platform company. We're still perceived potentially as a bit of a DMS company, but really what we're about is connecting all the dots in the technology, in the buying cycle, the ownership, sourcing of vehicles, and then hopefully making it a lot easier for our customers to do business and drive margin and profitability. Hear that time after time after time, low margin industry. We're part of that. We take that mission very, very sort of seriously, and we're doing absolutely everything we can, hopefully, to make things a bit easier. It was interesting. Joe mentioned last week, I believe, the number of systems that has to log into to just get the job done. That's the same up and down the country, and it's the same throughout the world. So our Fusion platform which is our automotive retail platform, really seeks to pull all of those data points, those pieces of technology, into much more seamless interfaces and connect the dots and make things easier, and subsequently reduce the processes, and then subsequently, help drive margin. One of the big things that we've done is really looked at a macro level in terms of the use of technology in the sector. And we've been doing sort of top to bottom studies in terms of what actually goes on in dealerships and manufacturers and how vehicles are moved and what's that sales process. And really like time and motion studies in terms of button presses and filling forms in and, taking inquiries and running them through the organisation, engendering loyalty, hopefully. And when we look at a macro level, scaling this up, and if you take some of these ridiculous archaic processes, and let's be perfectly honest, I think a lot of the technology and some of the technology that we've delivered has been built on very old processes and to try and resolve a point solution or a point problem, a vertical problem. When you peel all of that back, if you can start to recreate some of these workflows and improve that efficiency, just think differently about the problems, you start to make some very, very interesting connections, and then obviously some massive savings. We did a study recently for a manufacturer across Europe, and this is just in its after sales business, just in the servicing, and the savings are hundreds of millions just on one manufacturer. And if you take the sales process, we call that demand, acquiring customers, bringing them through to sale and retention. You take some of the operational tool sets, so the accounting processes, the financing, behind the scenes, and then sourcing of vehicles. I'm sure that's a topic that we might come on to, see what you guys are doing with AI. It's very interesting. I honestly, truly believe there are billions and billions of pounds, euros, dollars left on the table if we can all, and this is not just technology providers, is working with OEMs and dealers and fleet providers and financiers, linking that together, make this industry a bit more profitable and hopefully a little bit more easy for all of us. So that's a bit of the aim in terms of what we're trying to deliver with Fusion. And as I say, the London event was phenomenally positive, I have to say. We had some really great talkers from AWS. We had Massimo Cavazzani, and he talked a lot about AI. As you imagine, AI is on everyone's lips. Oana Beatty, who's a very, I would say, advanced, deep level AI specialist, some incredible points about the use of AI. Again, we'll talk about that in a bit. Scott Gaines, I think you guys know from Sophos 3. And then we had Vicky Housey, who's a FD at Crocsdale. And again, day-to-day challenges, but how do we leverage technology in order to do that? So great event, real good fun, and hopefully, it helps position our story, our narrative, and where Keyloop is in terms of being hopefully part of the solution for the sector. Not just another tech bro company.
Another tech bro company.
So not tech bros.
Tim, let's talk a little bit about AI, because it's a subject that's very close to my heart. I've talked about it a lot on this podcast, and actually we've deployed some AI technology very recently on our website. We're working with Impel at the moment. It's a chat functionality that's on the front of the website, and customers can go on there and ask it questions. I've been talking about it in our YouTube videos, so every Friday night, loads of people go on there, and what I find quite interesting is looking at the chats the next day and seeing what they've done. Some people ask who's better, James or Joe. Other people, one guy just told it to F off 4 times in a row and got a very standard response. But actually, there's been some genuinely good conversations it has had, and useful ones that has been taken away from us. that is a good use case of where AI does work. Where do you think AI can be deployed in dealerships? Is there places that we're not using it at the moment that we will be using it in the future?
Yes, definitely. And I think, to be honest, a large part of that is probably going to be behind the scenes. Those use cases, when you're talking about the agents essentially and the way that you interact with consumers, that's a very obvious use case, and it's been put to great effect by many dealers already. I mean, the interesting thing is I think we're at a tipping point in terms of consumers' belief in AI and chatbots over and above friends and family. So you're getting great conversion rates, and of course that helps you automate or not have to be at the end of a chat screen within the dealership. So that's great from an efficiency perspective. It's also putting more and more of the information together, so you're kind of getting assisted sales. You can, if it needs to overload, you can start to pull on a lot more information and detailed technical specification of vehicles, for example. But beyond this sort of just consumer layer and connecting dots there's an enormous amount of work going on with technology companies to use AI in order to improve and speed up the way that they code. We're looking and testing and running numerous use cases across our organization, which, number one, helps us build the technology, the products, code base faster and quicker than ever before. There's a couple of ways you can look at it. Seems bizarre, but from a co-pilot perspective, in terms of suggesting code and doing that on the shoulder, if you like, or augmentation from a developer's perspective, through to actually trusting agentic tool sets to create code itself by giving a bit looser set of instructions and pointing it at a task, and it actually creating from almost start to finish the routines, the scripts, the codes, the in some cases products or routines. So we're using it at a very deep level, and that's really exciting. I think one thing that is interesting, and Max from AWS just mentioned him at our Fusion event, the way that he looked at AI was a really good analogy. It's used in lots of examples with technology, but above the waterline, the iceberg, right? You've got what you sort of see as AI, okay? And that's your agents, that's how you interact. But underneath that is the data, and it is all about the data, how you pull that into your organizational technology systems, and then how you organize that and present it. And it needs to be controlled, it needs to be contained, it needs to be governed, regulated, all of those great things. But I think this is where I'm very excited in terms of Keyloop's provenance. I talk about that word a lot. We've got 40 years of building connections right at the heart of the automotive sector, across the fleet, finance, OEM, dealers. And that enables us to start to crunch that information together, to point our agents and AI tools at that data and provide even better use cases and tool sets. So I would say it is top to bottom, it is left to right, it is all over, it is through everything. And we're just starting to, I think, come to terms with the impact of AI in terms of the modern world.
Well, just to interrupt, just in terms of what that looks like from a dealer or a manufacturer perspective, or whatever, you guys have got, is it Vega, your kind of intelligence platform, I guess, to tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong? That's the...
What a lovely segue. So actually at Fusion Live, we did launch Vega, which is AI-driven business intelligence platform. Essentially, given the scale, I mean, we operate in thousands and thousands of retailers and dealers across the world, 80 countries, 80 plus manufacturers. Vega enables us and our customers to put a window into all of that technology and all of those data sets. Now, the big difference with Vega versus a lot of other, I would say, sort of business intelligence tools, where you create the reports, you're reliant on data analysts to start to create those dashboards and pull the feeds in. We are partnering with a company called ThoughtSpot and working together to drive, we hope, is next generation tool set for automotive. And as someone who uses Vega, you can literally start to write free language queries into the data, and this will live pull back inferences, insights. It will go across various departments or divisions in the organization, so you can map sales to after sales, customer data to vehicle data, sourcing to upstream or downstream, so manufacturer systems to potentially vehicles that are being defleeted. This is a very, very powerful tool, and we're truly excited that Vega is being released onto the market. Now, the big thing about it is, and I've said this for many, many years, technology on its own is, it's technology. You have to use it right, and you have to extract value from it. And the typical ways that we try and measure that is ROI, it's total cost of ownership, it's cost out, it's efficiency. What does it deliver in terms of benefits to the organization? And really, there's three main tenets to that, or universal constants, and that's time, money, risk. Does it save you time? Does it get you time to market faster? Does it make you money or save you money? And does it de-risk your organization? Great example, you guys, you're going to think you're making more margin on the Yakuza cars, the imports, right? But you've got all that risk about the stuff that you don't actually know, all of the admin, all of those costs. Now, it's great that you are making an ROI in the end, and congratulations to you guys on that. But it's really about focusing on those three universal constants. So our technology, our reporting stack, the way you interrogate that data, using Vega as that window in, is really about generating those sort of numbers. And then you can make meaningful decisions about the deployment of the technology. So, exciting times.
Tim, you chat to loads of dealers all the time. You've been in this industry a long time, and you've had a variety of roles. What are you seeing at the moment as the biggest challenges for dealers? What are they saying to you that they're struggling with?
The challenges, I think, they go up and down. New car vehicle supply, challenger brands. It can be new technology. It can be the turnover of staff, training, getting people into the industry. The challenges change, based on what sort of cycle we're in. We've got sustainability, we've got environmental challenges coming in. The reality is they are just drivers in the market. It's about your ability to be flexible and change, and to, as great a point as possible, plan. Now, from our perspective, we believe that the use of technology can really start to drive massive efficiencies. It's done it in small sort of slivers. And in the previous life at G-Forces and ATG, we were very focused around demand generation, around websites and e-commerce. That's just one slither of the overall automotive retail ecosystem. So I would say that being able to plot an accurate path through deploying technology, I think that is going to be one of the biggest opportunities, but it's also a big challenge because dealers are becoming definitely more savvy. The fact that we're even talking about AI is a great thing, but you have to understand how do you get there and where you want to go to. And as I said, remember that iceberg, those data connections are absolutely critical and imperative. So in a sense, you're kind of wiring or plumbing your organization for the success and the flexibility in the future. So the macro is the macro. We can't really change that. We just have to be able to adapt, evolve, and typically, I think organisations, dealers that do that faster, quicker, better, more efficiently, are the ones that tend to win.
Do you find it's a bit of a challenge when you talk to dealers about introducing new things and talking to them about new technologies? Because it means that they have to take their focus away from the main job of selling cars, isn't it? And it's sometimes I find when it comes to integrating something new, you just have to really park some space to actually do it. Otherwise, it will never happen.
Yeah, do you know, it is absolutely true, and it will continue to be true. We, as when you run businesses, you have to look at the BAU. You have to look at what is going on here and now, and often with chopping and changing and challenges coming in, that is the line of least resistance in terms of I need to focus on that. But I would say since I've been in the sector and in the industry, it's become easier to have those technology discussions. I think individuals in dealer groups and OEMs and the whole sector, there are more technology focused individuals in businesses. We're starting to see CIOs, chief digital officers, OEMs have been doing it for a long time, but actually in terms of dealers, there's been a much bigger investment in individuals and those skill sets. And with that brings an ability for those individuals to start to look and inform the executive. But one thing that I would say as well is even the business owners, the CEOs, the C-suite, whilst they're not maybe directly involved in technology on a day-to-day basis, they are all taking it very, very seriously. It's on everyone's agenda. No one wants to make the wrong step, and I think that at the moment is one of, if you like, the big challenges from a dealer group perspective. Because what I talk about this compression ratio. So if you think about the uptake of technology over the ages, it's getting faster and faster. I use an analogy as I think it was 40 years for half of the US population to use TV. It was a few years before it was half of the population that were actually using mobile devices, and then even faster social media. I think the number was 0.17 of a year. I don't even know what that is in terms of, I don't know, month and a half, whatever, 2 months, for ChatGPT to reach and be used by the US population. That's global. So when you've got that compression ratio and you've got the potential for the technology to make big changes and benefits to your organization, if you get the decision a bit wrong, the ones that make the right decisions, their advantage grows. And so it's a bit of a race. So that's all I say that's the challenge in terms of adopting and planning for the right sort of technology. And then it goes back to the iceberg analogy of making sure that your providers are plugged in at the right level of the industry.
And Tim, when it comes to websites and car dealers' websites, I mean, it was the big buzzword, wasn't it? I'm sure we spoke about it many times. Omni-channel, and it's
clicks and bricks.
Clicks and bricks, yeah. Oh my god, yeah. I mean, that one makes me feel a little bit sick now. But this, it was a big thing that happened after the pandemic, wasn't it? About people investing in their websites. What's the latest? How's it settled down now? What are the really good guys doing when it comes to running their businesses, both physically and digitally?
So you're right. This omni-channel kind of view is probably the right definition, because it essentially just means it's online and offline and it all comes together. Omni-all. So what we're sort of suggesting with that very phrase is that it's kind of one and the same. It is either online or offline or both simultaneously. Now, I think at the moment there's still a drive where a lot of the online technology is pushed car buyers into a showroom environment, drive to test drive. And I get the value, the experience, the immersion brands, but you think about the next generation, I can tell you they are going to be a lot less likely to want to actually even bother with a test drive. It's just simply they are more interested in quick commerce. Quick commerce is essentially getting goods delivered, 1 or 2 hours. And if you look at say a Gen X, me, you, James, and my millennials, John, right? We're sort of moving slightly more towards, yes, I want to get an Amazon delivery within a day. But most of our quick commerce things are about food and beverages. I hope it's not just alcohol, but it is that. So you get your instant. Now the sort of Gen Z and beyond, and then we're getting to alpha and beta and all of this kind of stuff. They are buying more and more goods and services on that 1 to 2, and the spike is much higher. Now, the expectation, therefore, is in the future, it's not just stuff off of Amazon or Shein orders, for God's sake. It's also going to be car services, it's going to be delivery to door. And if you've got that, you don't really have the time to necessarily go in the brand. And I also think, if you look at Apple CarPlay Ultra, that's just come out. There's 600 million users of that across the world. Aston have just launched that in the States. You start to homogenize parts of the experience. Now, I'm not saying Aston is the same, necessarily as volume brands, but you do get a level of homogenization. And actually, the in-car experience is really quite important. Electrification as well. Does it have quite the same sort of resonance in terms of the passion, emotion? I'm not sure. And then you've got the sort of shared, I suppose, models that are starting to emerge. I mean, we've had fits and starts with that, but subscription services. So this later generation are much more likely to start to move towards that. And they're looking at, the mobility as a service. I know those trends started ages ago, but actually they just take a long, long time to filter through. So they're the sort of things that we look at, and the sort of things that I suppose I think about a huge amount of the time, because we need to make technology and solutions that not only do the here and now, but do the future. So that online and offline, I get the use of omnichannel as a phrase, but it is just car buying, car ownership, car experience, and it's going to be so blurred, so the same. Interface is the same. Dealers using the same interfaces and deal stacking tools as potentially a car buyer.
We'll be right back. Now, John, I'm really enjoying how easy it is to pay sellers on CarWow.
I mean, presume you'd rather not pay them at all.
No, that is true. But now I can do it with CarWow Wallet. You can pay sellers, finance houses, and more instantly, literally in one click. It's secure, easy to use, and gets rid of all the pesky finance back and forth. It's a total game changer, John.
That does sound pretty good.
If you want to find out more, dealers can log on to carwow.co.uk/partners/carwow-wallet. Now, back to the podcast. Fascinating stuff, Tim. Thank you for sharing all that with us. I could probably talk about it all day, but we should probably do some stories, John.
Oh, I suppose so. Right, so James and I are going to run through our favourite stories of the week, and at the end, Tim gets to decide which one of us chose the best ones and who is the winner. Somehow I won last week. Oh, I know how, because it was, 2 employees against James. So,
yeah. It's always
going to happen. So I won, so I'm going to start. I'm going to start with news from Renault, actually. And their boss, Luca de Meo, this is obviously their big boss, not their UK boss, has suddenly quit the automotive industry as a whole to become the boss of Kering, I think you say. Kering, if I were to use the French pronunciation, which I'm sure I nailed there. But basically, this is it's a big luxury house, owns Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent, Alexander McQueen, Creed, all these brands. So he's disappearing from Renault, off to head up that particular fashion empire. And it's come as a bit of a surprise, but also there's been a lot of outpouring of, the automotive industry will miss him, because I think we forget how good a job he did at Renault. Renault, I had to look this up, but Renault's share price, for example, has doubled since he took over in 2020. And if you compare that to Stellantis, which has pretty much stayed the same, and some others have dropped, he's done a fantastic job. And Renault, of course, as well, was reeling from Carlos Ghosn escaping Japan and a music case. That and Nissan were kind of quite unsettled by his departure, and he was particularly a Renault man, Carlos Ghosn. So they've come out with all these new products, haven't they, Renault? Fantastic electric offerings. They've got a lot of SUVs, which, okay, is a bit of an eye roll, but that's what everyone wants at the moment. They're really well set up. And I think a lot of that has to do with Luca de Meo. So the question will be, who's going to replace him, really? And I think there's some musings about the current boss of Dacia might step in, etc., etc. But it's sad to see someone leave the automotive industry as a whole, because he started off in, I want to say, Seat, I think he was at before Renault. I think he's been at Toyota. He's been across pretty much everywhere, really.
I think he was at Renault at the start of his career, and then he...
Oh, was he?
Toyota, and then VW, wasn't he, when he did the Cupra?
What I find amazing about this one is when you operate in the automotive industry, you sort of think as car manufacturers the absolute giants, don't you? You think we're like they're the biggest and the best. And I've just asked ChatGPT, John, actually, to do a little comparison of keyring.
You need me. Just have ChatGPT on here talking.
Well, good do. I mean, it'd be better than me, wouldn't it? So, anyway, I've just asked it to do a comparison between Keyring and Renault, and the luxury goods firm is twice the size of Renault, 21 to 22 billion annual turnover compared to 11 to 13 billion annual for Renault. So, because I was sort of thinking as you were explaining the story, why has he done this? Why has he gone off and to do it? But
I'm going to do a gesture now for the people on YouTube.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, John.
I think it's the Gucci loafers that
It could be. I mean, he is Italian. So
there you go. But I mean, that's quite a headhunt, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure he's going to get a very nice pay packet.
Well, I will say as well, he's got, and I don't know a huge amount about the fashion industry, despite my fantastic wardrobe, but apparently he's got his work cut out for him, because things in luxury retail aren't as pleasant as they perhaps could be at the moment. I think Gucci in particular are struggling with sales a little bit.
I mean, come
on. So he's going to have to enact a turnaround plan like he did for Renault, really. So I suppose that's why they've gone for him.
Yeah. What a walk in the park compared to automotive, surely.
Probably.
Yeah.
A lot more products, though, if you think about it.
Yes, true.
Frying pan into the Firenze.
Very good.
Store of Gucci. That's what I like to think. He's going to be a massive loss. Right. The thing about Luca de Meo is he is actually like a car man, isn't he? He's cool. What he's done is he brings cool to, and obviously all of the brilliance in terms of his knowledge and leadership. But he was on Lamborghini and Ducati's boards, right? Mm. If you like cars and you like noisy things with wheels, they're pretty cool, and so that's pumping through his blood. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. And that Renault 5 Turbo E is insane.
Yeah,
it's just beautiful. It's about the first time I've actually got excited about an electric car.
Or a Renault.
Or a Renault. But if you think about it, Renault have been sat on the Renault 4 and the Renault 5 and the first generation Twingo and all these kind of iconic designs, and they've done absolutely nothing with them for the last 20 years. And now suddenly it's like, oh, let's get them all out at once.
Yeah, I mean, the Renault 5 is very cool, wasn't it? Shall I move us on?
Yeah, all right.
Okay. I'm going to take us back to Car Dealer World, and this is news, a rumour that Lithia may be about to swoop on the family-run car dealer group Hatfields. So it's an exclusive story that we ran this week. We've been tipped off that staff at Hatfields have been informed that the takeover is going ahead. June the 4th is the day that they were told this information, and that it's going to be made official on August the 1st. We approached the Hatfields boss, Gareth Williams, for a quote, who didn't deny it, but said, "We have no comment to make at this moment in time." And we all know what that means, don't we? So, I mean, from what I understand from a number of different sources, this deal is done. Pretty much, it's only a matter of time before it comes out and is made official. I just don't think they liked a phone call from Car Dealer Magazine journalists telling them that we'd heard about it before they wanted to make it public. Lithia, I think, is the big story here, really. It just shows that this is a big American firm that wants to get bigger and bigger, isn't it? I mean, they bought Pendragon, they bought Jardine. They are becoming one of the biggest dealer groups here in the UK, and this is another big acquisition. It does put a large number of Jaguar Land Rover dealerships together. I think Stratzone already had a number of them. Hatfields are big partners with JLR. But why sell up? Why sell up at this time? Which is one of the questions I sort of asked myself. Probably, John, going back to your previous your previous gesture, money. What I've heard, it could be north of 70 million for this deal could be worth, which is enough to turn most people's heads, isn't it? But yeah, I think the interesting thing for this one, if it does get confirmed, is that it just shows how much Lithia wants to grow here in the UK. I'm not quite sure where it puts them in the kind of grand scheme of the top five, but because obviously you've got Arnold Clark at the top, then Sytner. I think they were third anyway, so they will be rapidly approaching Sytner's size, I think, as these deals continue.
I mean, I'm going to contradict you slightly, James, and this is it's not a huge purchase, is it? What have they got? 6 sites, something like that. 5 sites. It's a lot of JLR. Yes, I would say for them. But I think that's the reason for probably them selling, because all their eggs are in the Jaguar Land Rover basket, and the first part of that organisation is gone at the moment, never to return for at least some time, and for most dealers, never to actually return. So I guess, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to be I don't know. I think Land Rover dealers are having a reasonable time, but would I have all my eggs in the Land Rover basket right now? Don't know if I would.
I think all eggs in one basket is, it's always a bit risky, as you say, because brands can have good times and bad times. I mean, the one thing that I would say, and I'm a JLR brand advocate, if you like, so I love the product, especially the Rangers.
Do you mean you're a glutton for punishment?
I'm not going to say. Reliability wise, no. Reliability wise, they've been pretty damn good for me. The only issue, I think I told you this, but I'd one stolen.
That was my next question. Yeah,
going in for the security update. So now I've gone back to basic, but it didn't put me off, going again, because I literally do. I love the cars. I think they're phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Just don't know if I put my own money in one. Anyway, John, over to you.
Well, I'm going to keep with the sort of JLR theme. I'm going to combine 2 stories in one, because we've had some news on the Trump tariffs this week, but not really any news of any significance, because it's just yep, the deal is definitely done, and there's been a handshake, and everyone says it's jolly lovely. The SMMT have been very pleased with the result, that it's definitely signed off, and Mr. Trump has put his big crayon on a piece of paper, and it's now happening. I will just throw one quote in from Donald Trump at the end of this, which is
please do in his voice.
I will do. Britain is apparently protected from other tariffs in the future, allegedly. And says the story, he told reporters, the UK is very well protected. You know why? Because I like them. Which fantastic foundation for policy, if ever I heard one. That's brilliant. But no, I'm going to talk about JLR because we've been shouting about how, the SMMT and most people have been shouting about how lovely it is that we've now got this signed off 100,000 cars can go to America at a reduced tariff, not no tariff at all, of 10%. But news in JLR land is not quite so rosy because they've downgraded their profit predictions as a result of these tariffs. And alongside that, some heightened global uncertainty is what they've said. So they now reckon their profits by the end of next March will come in at between 5% and 7%. To put that in perspective, it was 10.7% between January and March this year, but of course there was quite a bit of, I don't know, that was a very specific time. Whereas last year it was 8.5%. So if you think 8.5% down to 5 potentially is a bit of a drop. And they also reckon the cash flow in the company is going to be close to zero through its current financial year, which is a bit testy. But of course, we have to remember, like they might have snuck in, like this 100,000 cars tariff is helpful. We won't talk about the other amount going over that. But one, it has limited them by worrying about, how many are we going to get out under this 100,000? And also, it is still a tariff. There's still 10% added onto the cost of cars here. So what they're going to do, they're mulling, they say, putting that on the cost of cars sold in America, which I'm sure some customers will absorb, but others might not. And I think they've also halted shipments to the US for quite a long time while all this was been sorted out. And it's been up in the air for a little while now. We're talking, is it 2 months, something like that? It's all been floating around. So it's not all plain sailing, is it? Even though we've sorted this tariff out.
I think that delay, halting the export of the vehicles is probably the primary driver in terms of the profit downgrade. It's again, as usual, business abhors uncertainty, and if you've got Trump who likes us 1 minute and won't like us the next minute, again, that's a massive level of uncertainty. They won't be alone. We know that. But I was looking at the interesting thing was I was looking at the Aston Martin figures as well, and they said, that's one brand that definitely seems to be turning round, getting some success, and obviously they're pretty profitable from a per unit basis. So there's elements of success, and I just think we need the pride of that. But one interesting thing. Sorry to digress. I was at Le Mans this last weekend. Yes. And Aston Martin teams came out. They were running two of the Valkyries, and it came up with the US flag as a manufacturer. So Ferrari, Italy, and Mr. Stroll seems to have changed history as well there. So, I don't know. Cadillac polled first, unbelievably.
Yeah, that is strange.
Obliterated by Ferrari. Anyway, there you go.
I have literally nothing to add about tariffs, so I'm going to move us on because I find it the most boring subject ever. And I'm going to move us from a very serious story to one, John, about ducks.
Okay.
This isn't my ducks that were sadly mauled to death by a fox.
Oh, God.
No. So we lost. We had to have a special ceremony for Dash Gupta
And Peter Waddle.
As we waved them goodbye. Well, actually, one of them we couldn't find because the fox took it away and ate the whole thing.
Well, he probably went. Oh, no, I think it went off in its helicopter.
Possibly. Oh dear,
It's
very
on
good.
its yacht in Palma now.
No, very good. But no, these aren't my ducks. These are a used car dealership's ducks, John. I'm surprised you didn't pick this story because I know you took the pictures. And this is staff at V12 Sports and Classics in a showroom in Nottinghamshire who have some very unusual customers. They've got a family of hungry ducks just outside the showroom who James Baxter says have a quacking reason to feel grateful to the team at V12 in Worksop, because when they're feeling hungry, they actually walk into the showroom and get some food. But the reason I picked this story is because there is an absolutely fantastic picture of two ducks by the keyboard. They're clearly trying to work out how to get the keys off the machine, just as I do every single day at the dealership. But yes, a very nice, like friendly little gentle story, this, John, of some dealers that have taken some ducks under their wing.
Can you tell James started in local newspapers?
Yeah.
I mean, this would have been gold at a local newspaper.
There's a
This would
cat
have
up
been
the
absolute
tree
gold.
in Roehampton. Okay.
I mean, brilliant story. Unfortunately, the headline was a little bit plainer than I would have liked it to have been, but that's the needs of Google.
Well, can I take credit for this, James? Because I was there taking some photos, wasn't I? And then I was given the tour by the dealer principal.
I was by duck, I thought you were going to say.
No, not on that particular day, but I was given the tour of, right, here's our used car pitch, here's the service facilities, here's our ducks. And I was sort of like, what? Say again. Yeah, there's our ducks. Yeah, that's their duck house. They live in there. Yeah, and it's literally like 30 feet away from all their MOT bays and so on. But yes, they wander in when they're not being fed. They get very irate about it and just appear next to someone changing the oil on Audi Q7 or something.
What do the customers think about that? I tell you, I used to bring my dog into to work every day years ago. He was like a mutt like Jack Russell called Dudley, and we use a PR agency, PFPR. We worked with Peter and his team for many years. But a couple of years into our relationship, he said, "Oh, I thought your team and your company was a little bit different." What do you mean? He said, "Well, when we came in and we were going through the process of interviewing to get the business, he says Dudley was sat next to you at the boardroom table with his paws on the table." I mean, I literally didn't know.
Turned his nose up at all PR agencies.
That's the chairman, yeah.
Yeah.
What we used to call, because James had, when I started at Car Dealer Magazine, James had his dog in the office as well. But I don't know, did he have a title? He wasn't like executive regional manager.
What, Pierre?
Yeah.
No, he was just car dealer dog.
Oh yeah, and had a Twitter account. I remember.
He did have a Twitter account. Yeah, he
Those
did.
were the days.
Very popular. Now sadly deceased. Not the dog. Well, both actually, dog and the Twitter account.
Yeah,
and Twitter actually.
Shall I move this on?
Yeah, please.
So I'm just going to squeeze in two new cars that have piqued my interest, both of which we've not actually written proper stories about. We just shoved them into our daily roundups.
Have we?
Yeah, written at 6:30 in the morning, diligently by James Batchelor and Jack Williams. One is one you'd be very excited about, James, which is the Peugeot. The GTi is back. The Peugeot 208 GTi.
Is it electric?
Yes.
Not interested.
That's exactly what I thought you'd say.
That's not a GTi, is it? I mean, for goodness sake.
I mean, I was sort of. So I'm glad you've said that, because I was a little bit sort of like about this, only because, number one, it feels like Stellantis have suddenly realised that if they put a powerful electric motor in their small cars, they'll be quite fun. So they've done that across the board. It's suddenly happened. Every single brand has suddenly got a hot hatch has suddenly appeared. Mm-hmm. So when they're all there at once and they're all kind of going to be sort of the same-ish, it's a bit hard to get excited about them. I do like all the all the branding and so on, though. Like they've redone the wheels. I don't know what you'd call them, like the phone-style wheels of the old.
I thought you were going to say alloys.
alloys. Well, they are alloys, yes.
Yeah.
But the specs are a bit weird. Like it's 276 brake, front wheel drive. That's going to be a bit testy, I think. 5.5 seconds to 60, James. That excite you in a 208?
I mean, what's the range, John? It's going to be at least 400 miles, surely, something like that.
Well, they're quoting, and these are always very accurate figures when they quote them. 217. So
it's like 150 miles, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, probably.
Once you've actually turned anything on inside, like the
kind
heater.
of. Yeah. But I'll move on from that electric car into another electric car, which is a very strange one, which is the Honda, great name, Super EV concept. Like the most Japanese thing.
That's been translated, isn't it?
It definitely has, yeah. But like it's a teeny tiny little thing. It's like a K car with some wide arches. It looks a little bit like, well, actually, it looks a little bit like the new Panda, but it's much smaller. I would guess it's a K car that they're going to see if they want to bring to the UK. And I think that would be jolly nice if they did, because when we were in Japan, James, another humble brag for the podcast, we saw K cars everywhere, didn't we? You hopped in a few of them at the auction. You were like, this is quite nice, actually.
Very roomy, actually.
Very, very roomy, yeah. And I mean, the reason for that is because I don't think there's much in the way of crash protection, but very spacious until the point you hit something. But I think there's a lot more tiny cars arriving now, aren't there? There's like, what's that, Dacia Spring, which I'm not sure is particularly wonderful, but little electric cars seem to be appearing now when everything else is getting bigger. And I think that's probably because manufacturers have realised they still need to sell something at about 15 grand. What are you doing, James?
I'm looking at the picture, which is the worst photoshopped picture I've ever seen of a press image. Have you seen this?
Photoshopped?
Yes, it is. They've like stuck it on Westminster Bridge.
No, it's driving across Westminster Bridge, James, with a number plate on it.
There's actually no way that's there, John. I mean, come on.
If they were going to Photoshop it, do you think they might Photoshop out the taxis in the background and the Audi A3 from the 1990s that I could see?
Oh, yeah, there is an Audi A3. Now we're talking. Good bit of stock there.
Oh, dear. Right. I'm excited. I think Honda, I'm not that excited, but I'm mildly, my interest is piqued. And I think Honda probably needs something that isn't the ENY1 at this point.
I like, the sort of traditional manufacturers, they do need to leverage their heritage and the branding, and there is a sort of provenance to their design cues. So it is a competitive edge in the face of enormous cost pressures and volume, and in fact some of the improvements in quality and in-car tech that we're seeing from the Chinese. So I like the fact that European manufacturers are starting to really leverage their design heritage.
I think in a way it's all they've got in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit harsh on Renault, perhaps, but it's the strongest thing they've got in their armory. Probably tech moves on so quickly that they can't possibly hope to keep up with anything Chinese.
Well, you guys can't even keep up with the models that are coming into the UK market now, or the global car market. No one can. It's like, what is it, 18 to 24 months now? A lot of these Chinese manufacturers can develop from iteration to production. This is insane. It's that's how long it took a pair of Nike trainers about 10 years ago.
Yeah, true. And they were probably made in China.
Yep.
Right, let me. Can I wedge one more in, John?
Okay, yeah, fine.
I'm going to wedge one in. So this is news that mechanics at Hedin Mercedes dealerships to walk out on strike over a pay dispute. They say they are refusing to accept a real-term pay cut. This is workers at group sites in Brooklands, Bromley and Croydon. They've voted for industrial action throughout June and July in response to an increasingly bitter pay dispute, says this story.
Okay.
So they're represented by the trade union Unite, and they say that the workers received a 2% pay rise last year, below the average rate of RPI inflation for 2024, which was 3.6%. That rose to 4.5% in April, and workers say that Hedin has refused to put forward a pay offer for 2025. So as a result of that, Unite says that unless this dispute is resolved, further dates will be scheduled, and they're already going to go on strike on June the 23rd, which is Monday, isn't it? 25th, 27th, and 30th, as well as some dates in July as well. And it means that those mechanics responsible for Mercedes repairs, MOTs, and servicing across the capital will not be available to work. The reason I picked this story is I haven't seen this before. I don't think I've. I don't think
it's news, James.
Thanks, John. Oh yeah, I forgot that's how it works. No,
I mean, this podcast is rapidly turning into like the day to day, isn't it? Or...
brass eye, more like.
Yeah, brass eye.
No, I haven't seen this happen in the industry. I don't think we've ever reported on this sort of thing in dealerships. I mean, we certainly have at car manufacturers and in plants, but not in dealerships. And it also sort of ties into just how hard it is for dealerships to get hold of mechanics and good technicians. I mean, I speak to many car dealer bosses, and actually it's one of the things that comes up a lot. Just quite how hard it is to attract people into these jobs, and they get paid very well as a result. I did some Googling earlier today, and actually, they are getting paid decent money for working in these businesses, but clearly not enough.
Says the boss of a dealership. Not partisan at all.
I did do some Googling, and a good master tech in a franchise dealership can be earning upwards of £60,000. It's a fair wage, I think.
It's not an easy job though, is it?
It's not an easy job, and it's a very skilled job. And I can understand why, actually it's very hard to train these people. I sort of think that some businesses, and I know they do a lot of this, they should probably be focusing a little bit more on filling from the bottom. I remember when we went to see the Sittner site, the JLR one in Sunbury. Is it Sunbury? They were really into apprentices, weren't they? And they had a lot of them on the workshop floor.
Well, of course, Sittner was headed up by a former apprentice.
Indeed, it was at the time. So I just think this industry probably needs to work harder at attracting people at the bottom. A bit like the old football team adage. I don't know anything about football, but about moving people up through the ranks to become the best players in the future.
The academies.
Yes, the academies. Thank you. Says a football fan.
The technical term, James.
Yeah. But I think, interesting that it's come to a head like this, or a head in. Sorry, terrible.
I mean, this is just one selection of Mercedes dealers, isn't it? Under Hedin, it's not Mercedes dealers as a whole. It's not Hedin dealers as a whole. It's just this three.
Indeed.
It's a bit hard to comment on it without knowing what they're paid and what they're asking for, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I picked it, John, is just I was quite surprised it's actually happened.
I mean, can I make a wider point here?
Please do.
Which is, it's difficult to run a service department at this point, isn't it? Knowing what's coming in the future. Because particularly for something like Mercedes, who I would imagine have quite a decent hourly charge when you take your car in there, it's quite hard to justify the cost of a service on, let's say, an electric car. And it's all about, I can't remember who we were talking about recently, but profit, or talking to recently, but all the profit-making things in service departments, your oil and so on and so forth, kind of disappearing, and it's moving over to tyres and things like that. So there's a big adjustment coming. We're sort of stuck in the middle of it all, aren't we?
I think you're right. It is a big adjustment for the future. There are a couple of points. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and specifically around service after sales and the challenges faced manufacturers and dealers. And obviously, fewer moving parts, less chance to do mechanical repairs, real requirement for the future to upskill. You're going to have a lot more in terms of systems, diagnosis, technology. These are going to be sort of skilled, computer skilled, if you like, technicians. And then I suppose you've also got the issue on a personal basis. Everyone knows cost of living is still, everyone's facing those day-to-day challenges. And I wouldn't make a comment in terms of, this business and these individuals per se. It just goes to the wider problem in the market, as you say, John. It's a massive, massive challenge. The only way we're going to face it all together. That's it. So,
yeah,
that was a nice uplifting moment. Tim. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, nice.
yeah,
Nice.
come on, we're all in this together. Come on, we got this.
Well, I'm out of stories, John.
So, Tim, before I ask you a verdict, are there any other stories you think we should have talked about this week?
Not massively. I mean, it seemed a bit light in terms of subject matter, to be honest, apart from obviously the Keelip Fusion event, which you guys couldn't attend. It was a shame, but never mind. Dig in there.
Sorry.
No, don't worry.
Quick stab. I get a like at the end there.
There's no container gate from you guys because you've seen all those vehicles out there. I suppose that one thing I did mention it earlier is the Apple CarPlay Ultra and how that plays into the merging of technology and onboard computing and consumers using the Apple ecosystem, or indeed Google are going to be launching a new car OS later this year. Where does that leave the car manufacturer? Do they start to become licensees and JV kind of partners in the future? Just one, not probably for massive discussion, but
I'm going to briefly discuss it because I just want to wedge in controversially. I hate CarPlay. It's awful.
I think
it's poorly designed, and maybe the next iteration will be better. But I just think the way that some things are, like, for example, why can't you pinch to zoom in Google Maps, say, or Apple Maps or whatever? Drives me insane. Why? It's 3 presses to do everything. Drives me mad. I find the reliability of it is awful. Like in my Peugeot at the moment, I can count it. It is literally, I think it's 3 hours, and then suddenly it freezes.
Nerve here, Tim.
You what?
You've touched a nerve here.
I know.
It drives me mad. There's a column in me about CarPlay, but my point is, without going on about it, like the Aston Martin one, for example, would I trust all the screens in the car to be CarPlay?
Well, the underlying nature of it is that if CarPlay fails, still the main kind of engine or not engine. Well, it is engine in the Aston, the electrics, sort of bypass, so you don't get an impact on that. That would be annoying, wouldn't it?
Somewhat.
Apple CarPlay's failing. I don't know how fast I'm going. I don't know how much fuel I've got. I don't know that the engine warning lights come on. Anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, before I start going on about CarPlay again, I'm going to have to ask you, who chose the best stories? Who's your winner? Or what was your favourite story?
Just the fact that for me, and the ducks were great. Cheers, James. You always bring the animals into these things. But the Luca de Meo story is the one that I have most interest in, and that just rides roughshod over the rest of the drivel, James.
I think so.
So it's not drivel.
In the words of James Thatcher,
he's gutted again.
Absolutely quackers decision. So I should have definitely won. But well done, John. I'm going to go and sulk.
Thank you. I'm going to go and celebrate over I don't know what. Not a Renault because I don't have one anymore. Well. Strange outro. It's very hot here today. Slightly fried my brain. Well, all that's left for me to say is, do you know what we didn't actually I say all that's left for me to say. We didn't talk about Podcast Live.
No, we should talk about Podcast
I'm
Live.
just going to wedge in. Actually, you can talk about it, James, because there is a whole story.
Well, why don't we just do a little tease and then we can talk about it properly next week. And the intro, where I should talk about it, but it's on September the 24th, a hotel in Oxford. Tickets are available on our website. Come along. We've announced a guest this week, Vicky Hart from Waylands. We're very excited about it. Please come along, enjoy barbecue, listen to some duck news.
Yes, and I should say, for the last 2 weeks, or at least the first week when we announced it, we said there will be a discount code, and I didn't put one in. So I'm going to tell you now, the discount code is Picanto, I've decided.
Oh, brilliant.
To get you 10% off.
Very good.
So do put that in at the checkout under the coupon.
Well, very reliable discount codes you've chosen there, John. Excellent.
Absolutely. 7-year warranty on that discount code. We will be back with another episode next week, so make sure you're subscribed to be notified when that goes live. Thank you to Tim for joining us today. It's been lovely to have you on.
Thank you, gentlemen. Always a pleasure.
The pleasure is all ours. And thank you to James. If you want to check out the stories mentioned today, take a look in the show notes below or head to cardealermagazine.co.uk. Thanks for listening and goodbye.